Hello there, and welcome everybody to the first Virtual Space Hero LinkedIn live stream at a morning, 10 a.m. CET. A very warm welcome to everybody. We are streaming today to different platforms again, and I'm very happy to welcome you joining us from LinkedIn, our main platform, from Facebook as well, and hopefully afterwards we're also receiving comments from YouTube. So, welcome, and let's get started because this is not only our last LinkedIn Live for this year, and I'm super excited about it, but it's also the first time I would say that I dig into the topic of visuals and graphic visualizations. And I'm super happy about it because we do know that this year, many of us were struggling. We were thrown into the virtual space. Many facilitators had to set up the whole infrastructure, gain the skills and train themselves in order to be able to deliver virtual workshops. And on top of that, many of us were struggling to keeping also the engagement and interaction with our learners. And one way, and we discussed several ways already this year, but one beautiful way as well to change a little bit on how we interact and how we create the learning atmosphere and the learning environment in the virtual space is through visuals. And therefore, I'm really excited to have one of the experts in the field here with me. And I already had the chance to attend one of his workshops and about graphic visualization. Tim Hammonds is connecting today for us here at Virtual Space Hero from Singapore. And with this, I'm opening already the virtual doors to Tim Hammonds. Hello there, and very good afternoon, right?
Hello, welcome. Hi, Barbara. Thank you for this opportunity. Welcome, everyone, to this show, Virtual Space Hero. I was very attracted to the title of your show because I call when you are using visual tools that's your superpower to help you in your facilitation, help you in clarify communications, help groups to get their best work done. Through drawing, listening and drawing, your visual facilitation superpowers. So thank you, welcome.
Thank you very much for joining us. And well, for you it's afternoon, correct?
5 p.m. in Singapore, yes.
It's 5 p.m. already in Singapore. Yeah. So welcome also there to all the people connecting from Asia and from Europe. I think today we're probably having less people from the US, but next week again, we're going to have a different time zone to make it easier for the global community to join us. But with that, we're saying hello, Alok, and all the people out there joining our conversation about graphic visualizations, graphic facilitation today. Let us know your questions and please use the comment function to understand what your experience is with visuals or graphic facilitation as well. And we're super happy to pick your questions up and understand better as well what you need. But with that, Tim, help me understand a little bit because I know that you are one of the big graphic visualizers that I'm following on LinkedIn, and I always love content that you produce. But to be honest, I'm not so sure, is your background like an arts background or is your background a business background? So how did you get into graphic visualization?
Okay, great. So I'm gonna use some old school techniques here of paper and marker because this is what we teach and how we help people to create a space for new learning through hand-drawn visuals, whether that's in a interactive board such as Miro, or for your slides, or just like this. So my background is in visual communication. I was creating logo designs. I had the opportunity to work with a company called Landor in San Francisco, where my idea was selected for an international competition. It didn't win in the end, but it was exciting. So what we would do is we would fill up a room with visual ideas, logo designs for a client to tell different stories. Is it traditional or is it more modern, and so on. But what I enjoyed more than the end result was the process. And the process always involved thinking and drawing, working out ideas with a marker in my hand, And as I began, working working with different companies, to try to help them solve their problems and help them come up with a strategic visual solution around an identity, I realized that there's a growing gap between the mind and the heart. What I think, what I feel, and then how I express and communicate that, whether that's visually or just articulating my idea, having the confidence and the believing in that and trusting that. So I said, I think I know how to do something about that communication challenge, help to, bridge those gaps, so to speak. So that's what we started our company, Art of Awakening, doing visual business solutions with helping groups to facilitate, solve problems, understand their journey, see the bigger picture, creating more engagement and learning solutions through visual tools. So that's how I kind of came into this journey through the creativity.
That is your story. Fantastic. And I just love it. You know that you, of course, we were trying to have a live drawing here with Tim, but in this platform, it's not as easy as we thought. But the next time we're going to have that as well and integrate properly, right, Tim?
Cool. Yes.
Absolutely. Help me understand a little bit, because I found on your webpage, The Art of Awakening. So those who want to connect with him, you definitely should go to his webpage or connect with him on LinkedIn and follow him, because the postings are really intriguing in order to learn and experiment with different tools. artofawakeningasia.com. If you go there, you can also find what Tim and his colleagues, the fields that they are working in. So I understand that what you do is, of course, you're trained a trainer, so that trainers as me or virtual facilitators as me, we're able to develop our visual graphic facilitation skills. But on the other hand, you're also doing keynotes or visualizing keynotes for other speakers. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, there's different things that we do. Some of it involves live drawing at an event with the client, which is called graphic recording in our field. We also do facilitation with groups, helping them to move a discussion forward towards decision making or clarifying or brainstorming. But one thing that I've learned this year, this year is all about reinventing ourselves, and everybody's in that process, our clients, reimagining who we are and how we serve, what is our product, our service. And so I've reached out and, like this, taken on every opportunity that I can to speak at different events, and how, because what we do, it's great. We draw visual models and all that. We help articulate, mission statements and brainstorming processes and so on. But it's not so much about that picture, but it's the process. So if I can share the process with a group of engineers, a group of senior CEOs, with HR teams, then they can use these processes and these tools to support and energize their work and help them create solutions through these visual tools. So that's what I've been kind of looking to do this year through speaking and collaborating with different kind of groups and seeing how these tools can help support them in their goals.
And you're saying on your webpage that 85% of our participants are visual thinkers. Is that correct?
65% of people would, in a learning context, you will have 65% of the people in a room that will have a preference for visuals. That means when you're speaking, they'll listen, but then it's not going to stick so much. And if you take that, the people that are primarily dominantly visual, combined with those that are a secondary visual plus auditory, that number goes up to 85%. So up to 85% of the people in the room will have a preference to learn through visual tools. So if you're not using those, we all are now, whether it's in a Zoom call, you have, of course, slides is the easiest way to have a great visual performance. You've got interactive spaces, Miro and Mural and so on, that help to replicate, an in-person meeting collaborative experiences. So having visuals in your room, right? That's the key to creating engagement. And what I'm always talking about is live drawing or hand-drawn images that creates a break to the slide, right? Contrast, it creates contrast. The key to learning is to have contrast, in your room. Yeah.
And I think let's maybe break it down a little bit, because I know that I already attended one of your tremendous workshops. I really enjoyed it a lot, and it
Oh,
was fun because I would consider myself as a very pragmatic business person. I have my PhD in business studies, so it's like I don't consider myself really as being an artist, even though I like using storytelling. But
mm,
what I liked a lot about your workshop was that it seemed so easy. The very small elements and techniques that you showed us in only
mm,
that 1.5 hour, or maybe 1 hour it was, were amazing, that I felt like comfortable using more visuals and starting to draw as well while I'm talking. Even though I clearly experienced that it was like a multitasking that is like, whoa, hallelujah. Anyways, let's
hallelujah.
sort of break it. Yeah, yeah, I was. Let's break it down a little bit. What do you think, or what would you say are the important elements when it comes to graphic facilitation?
Okay. So first of all, let me just help define what that means a little bit. Visual facilitation, and the way I represent that is just a simple Venn diagram. Visual thinking, right, which is how we see, connect, and understand ideas using visual tools. And again, 90% of the information that we receive is visual, right? It goes to our nerve centers, so it's processed visually. But most of us are not taking advantage of that. So it's organizing and understanding how to use visuals, and then using facilitation best practices, which means creating learning tools and visual templates, visual agendas, such as those are behind me, and other things to help support groups to get things done. So some of the skills of visual facilitation. First of all, if you are um, doing any kind of work that involves creating an image for a group, right? There's a visual sensibility and the story. Like, what is listening for the story? So the main thing would be, I would say, is listening. And I saw also you had a nice podcast around a nice live stream on listening. And the way I look at listening is as a co-creative conversation. So when you go into a meeting with a group, most groups, you have a meeting, everybody has an agenda. I've got to deliver this part, and I've got to deliver this part, and sometimes we go in and we're just focused on what we need to do, what we need to deliver, that we're not really fully present or paying attention to everything and seeing what's emerging from here, whether it's organized or whether it's messy, and how does that where does that take us as a group. So as a visual practitioner, you're going in as a dedicated listener, and you're there to
Mm-hmm.
capture what's transpired in the room. That's one of the roles of a facilitator, is to document the proceedings. So to be a great listener and to be very very present, to be I use the word to be a container, right? You're open, you're objective, you're just a vessel to hear and listen and receive. So letting go of your own bias and your own agenda, so to speak. So being a great listener, and then connecting ideas. What is this that I heard, and how does that connect with what was said before it, and how does that connect with what I know, the objective and the outcome that we're working towards. So having that bigger picture and connecting, we call that synthesizing. And then of course drawing, but being able to draw quickly and simply. And that's Barbara, what you mentioned in the workshop that we did, was to give you an experience of doing that. And you said hallelujah. So I love that. Because it I love to create those little aha moments where you know 9 out of 10 people will say, I can't draw, right? And one of my little opportunities is to help move them along a little bit onto this spectrum that I can draw, because it's not about the skill of drawing is a very small part of what we do as a visual practitioner. It can look good. It's the headline, right, of what you see, but it's more, how do you listen and how do you connect the ideas to really support that group and their objectives.
I think
Yeah.
that's really important because also when I think about about visuals in a training, I very often, as this is sort of my skills gap, I think about, dear God, I need to be an artist, or I need to be a good like drawer, or I need to be good at drawing. But at the end, you're totally right, and also connecting it to my live session that I had with Joel Silverstone about exactly what you were saying, the art of listening in order to
Mm.
create trust. That was the context that we were discussing it with
Yes.
Joel, but also the art of listening in order to capture the most important information points and connecting them maybe
Mm.
in a new way or in a visual way so that people sort of identify and see the dots better. I think that's really, for me now at this point, to say that's really sort of the most important aspect of it.
Mm. Yes. Yes. It's
Yeah.
connecting the dots, uh, finding the story. Yeah. Um, I mean, a big part of the work that that we do, that you're supporting, in these interview streaming sessions, is finding story to create more engagement online, connection and engagement. That's what's missing, and creating an experience. So when we're doing this live in a room, we're capturing the story and making that tangible, and it creates a visual artifact, a tangible artifact of that event. But without now, we're not in rooms together, we're doing all of this work virtually, but we're still drawing live with them, their story and their idea, and helping to find those messages. It's listening and connecting, as you said. Yeah.
And if we look back at the industry, for example, I did notice that in the past, well, not this year, of course, but in the 4 previous years, or maybe 5 previous years, I saw at all the conferences that I attended or that I organized, probably a tremendous increase on visual artists that were hired to
Mm.
capture the most important messages of the keynotes or of several sessions, or for the whole harvesting and learning cycle of the participants in our conferences. They were sort of hired. Is that also something that you experienced in the past 5 years, to say so, or 6 years?
Absolutely. Yes. It's a growing industry, and in Europe, it's a very mature and growing industry. In US and Europe, it's very established for over, close to 30 years now. There's pioneers that have been doing this for that long. In Asia, it's more of a newer industry. We've been doing this for the last 10 years, but in the last 5 years, there's more people doing it. I'm just going to show. I'm gonna plug a little moment. This is a book that I helped to create called "The World of Visual Facilitation," over 500 pages, 54 co-authors. But
Wow,
but
54
the
co-authors. I
yeah,
edited, like, I don't know, 5 books, and to be fair, 54 people. That sounds like, hallelujah, a project of a decade. What's that?
it was. We did a book sprint, so that most of this content, or at least the big push of it, was done within 3 days, and we collaborated in different hubs. The three co-editors, one in San Francisco, one in Amsterdam, in Holland, and myself here in Asia. But the reason I show this is because I wanted to give Asia a voice, and Asian practitioners, visual practitioners, more of a voice and a platform in this work, because yeah, just to help lift and grow it up. And that's the same reason why I've been doing these different speaking events and more training events, is to help lift the profile of this, and see how it connects with different industries and supports them. Yeah.
And the book, what does it bring to me as a practitioner? Because the next question for me would have been like, is there any easy way? Well, I do know some of them because I attended your workshop, to create the visuals. Is this the book, the go-to book, sort of, to understand better how I can create easy visuals as well?
I would say this is not such a beginner's book. This is more. It's a bit more of a for practitioners and for clients who are going to use this, and how are they going to connect with the material. So it's there's other books that are more for to support beginners out there. I can share those links, but it's quite a growing industry. I have a few of them in my behind on the bookshelves. Yeah.
Fantastic. But maybe Tim, let's give our participants a few. I see a few comments coming in. Also,
Yes.
Alok is saying he looks forward to learning today from Tim as a facilitator. He loves to know more about graphic facilitation. Fantastic, Alok. We're going now with a very simple question. So, what is there? Is there an easy way to start if we think about using visuals? How should we start beyond, of course, attending one of your workshops? What could we do, Tim?
An easy way of using visuals, great. So what I would suggest is just in your next meeting, bring a marker, bring some paper, right? If you're in a virtual meeting, and just practice making simple notes about the content, about the stories. Um, I mean, this is how I do it. Is just a title. You can create a title that's a little bit larger and clearer, and then text that is smaller, and listen for some kind of simple imagery. And it's not about the drawing, it's about the idea, what the drawing helps you to get done and helps you to communicate. But if you feel nervous about doing that live drawing in a client event, then you can practice ahead of time as well. So a great way to practice is to listen to any kind of content that is interesting to you, a TED Talk, some of you at the previous your sessions, topics that are of interest about how to be more engaging online. Listen and draw out key points. And here's a great tip is to, after you've done that, then send it to the organizer with their name. They'll love it, right? Because we're hungry for content. And if you have some simple visual model that you've supported, someone like Barbara or other thought leaders, they're going to love it, and they're going to share it on their platforms. And see, it doesn't have to be a fancy visual. Look at like this simple thing I introduced myself, right? Just simple drawings that help create some content and help create a story around that content, because that's what we love. I'll share a very quick demo of how I draw a figure. It's great to draw a figure, a human figure, because people will connect that to themselves. And there's simple ways to do it. I like what I call a starman, which is just it's a 5-pointed star with a round head. So there's the round head. Here's my little star. And it's as simple as that. It took me 30 seconds. You can add thought bubbles to that. You can add speech bubbles to that. You can add simple things like an arrow, right, to indicate connection or relationship, where you are going. You can add different elements to suggest different things, and then you can just add words to it, like, what is my action? Curiosity, to overcome fear, right? You can certainly say this has been a good year for fear. How do I overcome my fear? With curiosity. So, that's a very simple demonstration of what I call visual storytelling, putting these simple elements together. It's just simple line drawings, a few words to give it context and meaning, and then you're on your way. So start with something like that, and then connect it with the next idea and the next idea, and you've got some little visual story that's going on already. Yeah.
A very super question. If we think about formats, so for example, while you were saying, grab a pen for your next session, and then I was like, oh God, what do I have to write on? And the only thing that I got is like the Post-its that I had here nearby myself. But anyways, what would you say should we start with? Is it like an A4 or letter size? Where would you start? What sort of size as well of the paper?
I mean, so every client call that I'm on, I have an A4 paper that's with me, right? And I'm just drawing live. As I've demonstrated, I'm creating a story about what's the client, what's their need, why have they contacted me, what are they looking for. So I use an A4 paper because it gives me space that I can map out. I can talk about what's in current, what's in the future, what's what are the gaps in the way? What's the big picture possibilities? What are some of the action steps along the way? So I can begin to map out a narrative or a story, a journey perhaps for this client and what they're looking for. And they love it. I send that to the client after the call. Yeah, along with, if there's a proposal or whatever we're doing to follow up, there's the text that they expect, the left brain content, and then the drawing, which is more of the creative right brain. And so I'm demonstrating what I would be doing with them in the meeting, and I'm also helping them to engage with the story of their challenge or their need. So anyway, I've diverted a bit, but I use an A4 paper, helps me to do all of that. I'm also using these simple cards. These are simple index cards that I create ahead of time for certain key messages. And this is something that you can do as when you're presenting a story, presenting content, is have a stack of such cards for key messages and ideas that you can bring up and hold up like this, that you can use as an alternative to slides, or when you're speaking, your slides are off, you're speaking like this, you can hold them up. You can also use Post-its in the same way. For key points, you can just hold up a Post-it like that. If you have a camera that has the autofocusing lens, you can get creative and sort of, right, it will come into focus while everything else is going out. So different ways to connect that doesn't involve slides and doesn't necessarily need to be supported with the technology, the simple traditional technology.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I think this already helps a lot to understand better that we can just start small, even if it's just a small Post-it that we use with whatever drawing on it. And probably I assume that, well, I'm just drawing now like one of the classical trees now, because I was using that in some of my trainings for the to create like a Christmas feeling, whatever. But I think that's also nice that you were showing like we can start very small, and then we can sort of have that growing and as a growing visual art as well. Let me pick up on one of the comments that we have here. Fantastic, because I see Sue is connecting from the US. Thanks a lot, Sue, for connecting and being with us. Don't worry about being late. We still continue for the next 12, 13 minutes. And let me pick up here, Tim, a question from Vincent. Vincent is asking, mentioning that at the last Congress that he attended, they had a visual harvester. And he never heard that term before. So would you say, and I think that's a little bit what we discussed at the beginning, that this is a new profession as well?
Well, so a visual harvester, I think that's a term that's quite commonly used in Europe, as I've known and other colleagues have mentioned. It simply means that you're capturing the conversation. If it's a team conversation, or if there are diverse voices in the room, you're just drawing them out. A panel discussion, right? You're capturing the themes, the essence, the key messages as a way of harvesting. If you're doing facilitation, 1 day or 2 day facilitation with a team about ideation, right? You're coming up with lots of ideas at the beginning, and then asking why, and then towards the end you're asking, first is why not, and then the end is why. So you're eliminating ideas, but you're organizing and synthesizing those ideas and prioritizing them and so on. So that's the process of harvesting, is gathering that. Perhaps at the end of the session, what's a key takeaway, right? Is always going to be, what's a key takeaway? What's the next step? You can capture those points, right, on a Post-it. You can capture them as a synthesized visual. You can capture them next to the person's names, right? If you have a small team, you're able to do that and organize that and manage that a little bit better with a smaller team. It creates a visual summary. So those are some examples of visual harvesting. And is it a new profession? It not so new, but in some industries, in some locations, perhaps it is growing. Yeah, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah. And I see also Thomas is saying also that it's a great way to reuse those sheets of paper sitting in our drawers. Exactly, the back part of it. Fantastic. Cool. Let's look at that. What's that?
Uh, so these are agenda posters, right? You see behind me is a larger agenda poster. Here's a simple agenda poster, for a training, visual skills for virtual connection. You can create, look at how simple. Remember the demonstration I did a moment ago about the Starman overcoming fear? So you're just using these simple elements intentionally around your content. So if you're presenting something in a meeting, take a time to create something like this. You can email it to the participants ahead of time with your introduction. If you're creating a LinkedIn event or somewhere else, you can put this as the header, the title. It captures attention. It gets that interest. So it stands out, right? Our brain is more attentive to something that is different than to something that we're used to seeing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you're creating those opportunities for your ideas to stand out. Here's another way to present some information is using simple post-its like this, right? You start out with a blank space and you just add, or that's like the question of what happens before an event, a facilitation, and here's how visuals support you. So you're creating a little bit of interaction using simple visual tools. The post-it, right? A facilitator's best friend. Yeah. So
But I also know,
yeah,
Tim, that you're also supporting trainers, right? Because you also create templates for us to support us in our sort of visual learning journey. Is that correct? Because I just got one amazing template from you that is a 2021 visual template for goals. And here it is.
yes.
For those of you out there who want to have a look at that, just check out that link and check out what Tim and his colleagues prepared for us so that those of us who are not as good yet, we can build on something.
That's fantastic. Here's a picture of it, Barbara. So, the idea of this, it's a hot air balloon launch, right? And this is something that's perhaps more available in Europe than it is in Asia. And we went to one in the countryside in UK in 2018 together with my wife. This was on her bucket list to see a hot air balloon launch. So the idea is when you take your goals, what do I want? What are my big picture goals and ideas? And you capture them, you write them, you draw them into this kind of a map. You're putting your goals into a story. And this is a story that is uplifting. If you've been to a hot air balloon launch, it takes your breath away, right? It's quite
Mm.
awe-inspiring. And so what are my goals that I'm launching and lifting off? What are the resources and support that I need? What tools do I need? What do I want to let go of, right? What is my vision for the future? So this is called a visual template. And the key to that is two things. Number one, there's blank space. Our brain doesn't like blank space. It gets very uncomfortable with blank space. So in that discomfort, you're beginning to think, what do I put there? And that way you're participating already. You're creating engagement. And number two is story. Our brains love story. We're biased towards story. So visuals help to anchor those ideas and stories together. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah, and that's
power.
also you see what Patricia is saying here. Pictures are worth 1,000 words, and I think what is amazing is the way you connect it, of course, because visualization has a lot to do with storytelling itself as well.
Hmm.
And we had here also Vincent is saying it was amazing the visual harvester that they had during the conference that made a visual summary of all that was said. So those of you out there who want to think about the goals 2021, have a look again at the template that Tim prepared. It looks amazing, and I certainly will look at that. Let me move on with a slightly different question. Wait. Look there. I prepared the
Different.
answer already. So, I do also work with a second camera, for example, and I've seen you in the last time that I was in your workshop. You had a second camera connected, and you
Yes,
were sort of displaying the drawings over there. So, just for
that's right.
those of you out there, it's just as easy as you connect a second camera, for example, here that I use it
Right.
in my cell phone. In this case, I use my cell phone, or sometimes I have a second camera up here. Well, and my beautiful statement, I'm a woman, what's your superpower? That helps me. But anyways, so this is the possibility on how you sort of connect the second camera. But what are you using then? So I know you also work with the second camera. What tools are you using? And I think that relates a little bit to the question from Nina over here. So wondering if you possibly had any recommendations for tools we could use during our online sessions.
Yeah, so as Barbara just mentioned, a second camera that serves as a document camera allows me to draw, right? I can draw a full-size A4 paper, draw out the story, the content, as I mentioned, when I'm in client meetings, and doing live graphic recording or live facilitation with visuals. We also use Miro. There's Miro and Mural, our great online collaborative platforms. You can bring in, I mentioned this visual template, you can create a visual like this and import it into those platforms and use it as a placeholder, right? As you would in a large conference. Then the participants can post, interact with the post-its here at different parts. You can do the visual harvesting as was mentioned, that's done live. You can do that with a group. So you're creating a rich and collaborative visual to represent the story or the objective of what we're here to do as a group. Yeah, you can bring in an overhead camera. I've used my phone on a clamp that is the same purpose. You can log in 2 times into a Zoom call. One is this camera, one is your overhead document camera or your iPhone, the same purpose. If you have a digital tablet, an iPad, you can draw on that as well. You can draw, here's a great tip. When you have your slides, you can draw on your slides in PowerPoint if you are able to put them into a tablet and have a cursor. You can draw on just adding circles and arrows, and if somebody says something that the group responds to and you can feel that's the job, your role as a facilitator. Write that word, draw a simple picture as I've demonstrated to anchor that message in that story, because people love that. It's a form of validation that I hear you, your voice matters, and it's a gift to them when you're able to capture their words and ideas. That's one of the key values of this work that we do live with clients.
And if we think about that, because you were mentioning you can just draw on your PowerPoint slides, do you mean by using the annotation tool, and if you have a touch screen, or what do you exactly mean with that?
The way we do it is with our tablet. So we're drawing live as the client. We import our slides into the tablet, and then I'm drawing on them. I'm just trying to find one here. Well, okay, it's not the best example. Anyway, here's our Christmas card. But what I saw
that on LinkedIn. I liked it a lot. Yeah.
So you can import your slides into here, and then you can draw on it. I'm just drawing, right? You can circle a key message. I'm doing this backwards and I can't really see very well, but you can draw on this. You can import your slides into the tablet and draw on it, and then you can forward to the next slide and so on. Yeah, so it's a way of creating simple engagement in your slide presentations. If you have a presentation that you need to present a lot of slides. Again, contrast and variety. People are more engaged. Here's another one of the principles that we've learned. People are more engaged by something that is iterative as compared to something that is finished. So a slide is finished. It says this is my idea, and it's finished. It's set. But a drawing is iterative. It's being created live for you. If you have a slide and you're drawing on it, it's somewhere kind of in between those two. But if you're doing live drawing, yeah. That's the
Yeah,
gift.
and I think that's also what Patricia is saying here. Like the tips are great to reduce audience multitasking and encourage engagement because clearly, if I see that something is happening there, people stay much more with, oh, what is coming next? What is he or she drawing next on this picture in order to summarize what is being said? And
Yes.
also what Berta is saying, just let me drag in also her comment. I think it's fantastic because it's a beautiful way of showing that you're listening to the participants. And Tim, this
Absolutely.
reminds me of one of your workshops that I attended, where you sent us into breakout rooms. You showed us sort of like the basics on how to draw like that star person and the arrow and create a timeline. And then you sent us into a breakout room and we were asked to share the story while the others were listening and capturing a picture of the story. And the visual interview it was. I loved it.
Yes.
And it was so great because what we heard, and that relates so much to what Berta is saying, that we are showing that we're listening to the participant or to our counterparts in that visual interview. Because what happened is one person was sharing the story, where he or she is coming from and what's her professional focus is. The others were drawing it. And afterwards, we were sharing our visuals about that person's story. And it was amazing. You could see, first of all, how we were able to produce something simple after having had, like, I don't know, 45 minutes with you. And then the second thing was we saw like that feeling of how appreciated that person felt, having like 3 pictures that we were showing into the camera of what we heard in the
Yes.
story the person told.
Yes. Fantastic. Yes. Uh, Absolutely. And thank you to the participant who shared that comment, uh, because it's a form of validation, and it's a form that, your voice matters, your ideas matter, and it also gives an immediate form of feedback to the participants that says, this is what I heard you say, right? Here's what made sense to me. Here's what stood out for me. Is that accurate? Is that correct? And then you can build on it from there. So it's a way of co-creation, brainstorming, collaborative ideation. And but the main thing is that people say, I can't draw. It's that naggy little voice that sticks in our over our shoulder, um, and that's fine. So we resort to things that are more traditional or easier, like PowerPoint. Nothing wrong with PowerPoint, but we avoid it. So my encouragement is just, it's not about the drawing. It's again, it's about the idea. And if you ever have children who have made a drawing for you, it doesn't matter what that drawing really was or what it looks like, but it's given with love and with pure intention. So every drawing is a gift. It's a gift to yourself, to clarify your thinking. If you bring that into a meeting, a presentation, it helps the groups to see and understand what you're trying to communicate, and then they can work on it together. So it has 3 layers of value. It helps to clarify, helps them to understand, and helps them to work on it and move forward. Yeah.
And you know what? That activity while we were in the breakout rooms where we were drawing one person's story, it reminded me a lot. And I was just looking at it up, how it is called, because, I'm also a big fan of liberating structures. And when I had Henry on my show, Henry Manowitz himself and Isman Tanuri, we were talking about how to use liberating structures in the virtual space. It reminded me a lot about the feeling that one liberating structure techniques very often produces in participants, and that's the number 19, heard, seen, respected, where it's also a lot about listening. Well, there is not the visual component there, but the way they are sort of describing this activity or this liberating structure is very similar to the feeling that your activity produced in us or created in us. And that's what I really, really enjoyed. But Tim, I do have to look a little bit at time, and I see that we should be coming to an end, and that's why I'm picking up last question from Hubert there. So Hubert is asking again, do you have an easy, applicable idea to practically use Miro for collaborative drawing? Does everybody need a tablet?
Hmm. No, if you're working on Miro, you don't need a tablet, right? You just use the platform. There's an annotation tool and drawing tool in Miro, even though they're quite they're basic now, but I'm sure it will improve as we're working with these more, and the demand is there. Um, I mean, I'm still learning Miro myself, but the way that I've used it, as I mentioned, is we've created. Let me share the one that we've most used the most, which is this one, right? I mean, this is like a standard journey map, where we are now, current state, where we want in the future, and bridging those gaps. What are the big ideas? What is our vision? Key milestones and goals here. So we put that into the board, the platform, and then we invite teams, maybe breakout teams, to discuss one of those areas and come in and talk about it. How are we reimagining the future of our university, for example, with one group? Um, so, I mean, you can draw this with a simple marker. You can take a snapshot on your phone with an app that turns it into a line drawing, such as Cam Scanner. Then you import that into the online platform, and it creates a background, right? That you then create the rest of the work in the Miro to get groups drawing. You don't need a tablet for that. You just draw. A tablet helps because it makes a clearer, better version of the visual that you can import. Yeah, it's a better drawing for the importing.
And I think what I honestly also liked, Lau, was your tip. And I'm just sharing now something that I was using in an in-presence training, but years ago. It just came up to my mind that where I also, because I don't feel like I'm a really good drawer, or I sometimes don't feel as spontaneous. And that is one of the trainings that I was using, where I gave the participants a prepared sort of template that they could use to write down the most important points while they were listening to, where they were in the training and stuff like that. And I think it's very similar to what you're suggesting, that you could, for example, already prepare something beforehand if you don't feel as comfortable yet, and use it sort of as a structure, maybe.
Yes, absolutely. You can create those. That's a great example of a visual template, Barbara, is just the space, right? And what we do in face-to-face trainings is we'll create a large board in the room, like what I've just shared on a journey map. When people walk in, they see it, and there's that, what's this about? There's a curiosity, and as I mentioned before, there's that cognitive dissonance, right? I see a picture, but it's empty. My mind is uncomfortable. I want to put something in there. So you can create these and just bring it in different ways. Bring it into your slides. Bring it in to your collaborative platforms, as we've mentioned. It just, you start with a banner, a banner around the side, a title at the top, and then some imagery that makes sense to that, a story, a metaphor, a narrative. The simple icons like we've shared. I'm happy to share. We do, and you can invite your participants to join one of our upcoming 90-minute introduction sessions like we've done. And we've shared the link there where they can download the visual template, and that will also, then we'll keep them updated on different events that we're doing, trainings, and so on. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would also recommend to everybody out there. So Tim is tagged into this LinkedIn live session on LinkedIn. Connect with him on LinkedIn, because I also learn a lot just by following those great visual artists to understand and see a little bit. So what you're posting, but also you sometimes share your work, which I just love to see that. Yeah, exactly.
These are just some fun little things I created for another event. Yeah.
That is fantastic. So everybody out there, don't miss to connect with Tim, and also don't miss to look at the visual template for the goals, and it's already shared there. And I saw also that Thomas shared it into the comment section here. So just scroll a little bit up, look at Thomas' comment, and you can directly click on the link already and download the visioning template. And with that, I'm not sure, there is also Gemma saying again, it's a great way to build awareness of our most preferred sensory modes of learning and activate those parts of the brain we are not using as default. Exactly. And I think that's a pretty great summary why it is so important, because we do know that up to 85%, as you were saying at the beginning, do like to have visuals to stimulate the brain. We do know that, of course, it is important that we structure, that we design, facilitate great meetings and events, but also the way how we use tools and the way how we create different ways of interaction with our participants can help us to keep their engagement and motivation. And with that, Tim, I really want to say, wait for it. I really want to say, look at that. that was the easiest thing that I could come up with now. Like, fantastic. It was tremendous having you on the show. Thank you so much. Really great. We are going to be all hashtag brave doodlers, right?
Yes, sorry. Be a brave doodler. Oh, something happened to my voice.
We are going to be brave doodlers, and let's read the last message here. Every drawing is a gift. Oh, well, and that's of course beautiful. Fantastic. Even like sort of using the paper in a different way. So thank you so much, Tim, for being with us, and thank you everybody out there. So Tim, you know that I have sort of a virtual visual coffee prepared backstage, and I'm joining you immediately, just closing up here. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I'm seeing you backstage in a minute. Fantastic.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And with that, thank you so much for your participation. Thank you so much for being with us. I think we got a lot of input, and I would totally recommend you join one of Tim's workshops, because you're getting a very easy introduction and sort of taking the fear off you on what it means to draw and use visuals or graphic facilitation in the virtual space. I've been organizing conferences or bigger events for many years, and we also had already visual facilitators or visual artists like 6 years ago at one of the conferences that I organized in Spain, in Valencia here. But to be fair, I do see even now, as we're in the virtual space, I see a tremendous importance to change a little bit the way that we are displaying the content that we want to display. So I'm also playing around a lot with second cameras, OBS, trying to find my way into better visuals and make it different. There are several options and tools that we have, and I hope we could give you an introduction to that. With that, thank you very, very much again for being with us. Don't miss our 2021 calendar. We already have a guest lineup until March, I think. So I'm just preparing all the detailed descriptions now. They will be on our webpage very soon. So next week, we are continuing to talk about how to select a virtual facilitator. If you go to virtualspacehero.com, you find on top the 2020 calendar, but also next week onwards already the 2021 calendar up to March. Set yourself reminders, and you're being reminded if you connect with me or follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you very much for being with us. It was a great pleasure having you, and I really hope you're enjoying now the 30th of December, the last sort of a bit less than 48 hours of this year 2020. Thanks for following, and thanks for your trust and comments and feedback. Bye. See you next week.